I just can't do this anymore. Why did you lie to me? I saw her.
The city never truly slept. It only pretended to, waiting. From the top floor of a private hotel overlooking the river, Leonardo Moretti watched the lights flicker like dying stars. Each one belonged to someone who feared his name, paid him, or prayed they would never cross his path. He had built this city the same way he built his empire, quietly, patiently, without mercy. Tonight was supposed to be simple. No guns. No blood. Just pleasure. Behind him, soft music hummed through the room. The kind of music that dulled instincts and softened men who should never feel safe. Elena, his mistress, rested against the silk sheets, calm, confident, dangerous in the way she smiled without asking questions. Leonardo loosened his tie. His reflection in the mirror showed a man untouched by doubt. A man who had survived wars, betrayals, and executions. A man who had never made the same mistake twice. Then his phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen. Wife. He didn't answer. Leonardo placed the phone face down on the table like it was nothing. Like it didn't matter. Like the woman calling him wasn't the only person who had ever known him before the power, before the blood, before the name Moretti meant death. Elena watched him carefully. She always did. Everything okay? She asked softly. Leonardo nodded. Business. Another vibration. He ignored it again. In another part of the city, in a house guarded by silence and shadows, Isabella Moretti stood alone in the master bedroom. The room was immaculate, too perfect for a woman whose hands were shaking. Her phone was pressed tightly to her ear, listening to the sound she feared most. Voicemail. Her breath caught. She swallowed hard, dialing again. She wasn't calling because of jealousy. She wasn't calling because of rumors. She was calling because she had seen something. Minutes earlier, a sealed envelope had been slipped under the door by someone who didn't knock. Inside were photographs, documents, and one sentence written in red ink. Tonight decides who lives tomorrow. Isabella's eyes burned as tears formed, but she didn't wipe them away. Her tears weren't weakness. They were fear sharpened by understanding. Because she knew how this world worked. She had survived beside Leonardo long enough to learn the language of threats. And tonight, something was wrong. Her phone buzzed in her hand. No answer. Back in the hotel suite, Leonardo laughed quietly as Elena's fingers traced his wrist. The city felt far away. Consequences felt imaginary. For once, he allowed himself to believe he was untouchable. The phone vibrated again. Third call. Elena glanced at it this time. She's persistent, she said, her tone unreadable. Leonardo smirked. She worries too much. He silenced the phone. Across the city, Isabella collapsed onto the edge of the bed, clutching the envelope like it might disappear. Her breathing broke. Tears streamed freely now, not because she was losing her husband, but because she might lose him forever. She dialed again. Fourth call. Fifth. Each unanswered ring felt heavier than the last. Like a door closing. Like fate hardening its decision. Leonardo poured himself a drink. Whiskey. The good kind. The kind reserved for celebrations and final decisions. He raised the glass, unaware that the moment he chose comfort over instinct, something ancient and unforgiving had begun to move against him. Elena watched him drink. Her eyes reflected the city lights, cold, calculating. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Stay, she said. Just one word. Leonardo didn't hesitate. That was the mistake. The phone vibrated again. Sixth call. Isabella slid down onto the floor, her back against the bed. Her sobs were silent now, controlled, contained, deadly. She wiped her tears, stared at the phone, and whispered to herself. If you don't answer, I'll have to. She made one final call. Seventh. Leonardo didn't see it, didn't hear it, didn't feel the weight of the moment pressing down on his empire like a loaded gun. Outside, a black car idled across the street from the house. Inside the envelope, the final document waited to be used. And somewhere between 10 missed calls and one terrible choice, a future began to collapse. The screen fades to black. Silence has a sound. It's the sound Isabella Moretti heard when the final call went unanswered. The phone slipped from her fingers and landed softly on the carpet, too softly for something that heavy. She didn't cry anymore. Tears had already done their work. They had washed away hesitation, fear, and denial. What remained was clarity. And clarity in this world was dangerous. Isabella rose slowly from the floor and walked toward the vanity mirror. Her reflection stared back, eyes red, face pale, but posture unbroken. This was not the face of a woman abandoned. This was the face of a woman who had just solved a puzzle too late. She opened the envelope again. Photographs spilled onto the table. Leonardo entering the hotel. Elena beside him. But these weren't scandal photos. They were timestamps. Coordinates. Proof of movement. Isabella's fingers trembled, not from heartbreak, but from realization. This wasn't about an affair. This was about timing. She pulled out the final document. A list of names, men Leonardo trusted. Men who protected the empire. One name had been circled in red. Elena Vasari. Beneath it, a note in unfamiliar handwriting. She doesn't love him. She's waiting for him to choose. Isabella exhaled slowly. She had spent years surviving beside a king who believed power made him untouchable. She had watched men flatter him, betray him, die for him. And she had learned the most important rule of all. The most dangerous person in the room is the one everyone underestimates. Including wives. Isabella moved quickly now. She locked the bedroom door. Pulled a small safe from behind the wardrobe. Inside were things Leonardo never asked about, and she never offered. A burner phone. A ledger. A single bullet. Her phone vibrated. A message. A known number. He didn't answer, did he? Her throat tightened, but her hand stayed steady. She typed back one word. No. 3 dots appeared instantly. Then we're running out of time. Across the city, Leonardo slept peacefully beside Elena, unaware that the woman he had ignored was now 10 steps ahead of him. Isabella dressed carefully, not elegantly, not hurriedly. Black coat. Hair tied back. No jewelry. No softness. She looked like someone preparing to disappear, or someone preparing for war. Before leaving, she stood in the doorway of the master bedroom and looked back at the life she had built. The paintings. The luxury. The illusion of safety. She whispered, I tried. Then she turned off the lights. Elsewhere, in a dim cafe that never closed, a man watched the door from behind a newspaper. He checked his watch. Midnight had passed. She should have been here by now, he muttered. Isabella entered moments later, eyes scanning the room. When she sat across from him, he didn't smile. You shouldn't have waited, he said. You shouldn't have involved my husband, she replied. The man leaned forward. You already know what she is. Isabella nodded. Not who? What? He slid a photo across the table. Elena, years younger, standing beside men Isabella recognized from old funerals. Old enemies. Dead enemies. She's a trigger, the man continued, used to fracture empires from the inside. Romance is just the delivery system. Isabella closed her eyes briefly. Leonardo had chosen her. Not the wife who knew his enemies. Not the woman who understood the cost of power. But the blade wrapped in silk. How long do we have? Isabella asked. The man hesitated. If he stays the night, maybe hours. Isabella stood. Then I need to become someone he listens to. Back at the hotel, Leonardo stirred. A sense of unease brushed past him like a shadow. He reached for his phone, paused, then ignored the instinct. Elena watched him from the bed, eyes open. Somewhere between loyalty and love, Isabella Moretti had crossed a line. Not to destroy her husband, but to decide whether he deserved saving. The screen fades to black. Elena Vasari had mastered the art of stillness. She lay beside Leonardo as the city breathed below them, her back turned, her breathing slow and measured. To him it looked like sleep. To anyone else it would have looked like peace. But Elena was wide awake. She had learned long ago that the most dangerous moments were the quiet ones, when men believed the night was over, when decisions felt final, when guards relaxed, when kings slept. Leonardo shifted beside her. Even in rest, he carried the weight of power. His hand twitched once, instinctively searching for a gun that wasn't there. Elena smiled faintly. Men like him always slept with one eye open. She slid out of bed without waking him, bare feet silent against the marble floor. The phone on the table caught her attention, not because it buzzed, but because it didn't. 10 missed calls. All from the same name. Isabella. Elena picked up the phone and studied it like a chessboard. She didn't delete the calls. That would have been careless. Instead, she placed the phone back exactly where it had been, angled just enough that Leonardo would see it when he woke. Seeds worked best when planted gently. She wrapped herself in a silk robe and stepped onto the balcony. The night air was sharp, cleansing. Below, the city lights flickered, alive, ignorant, obedient. Her burner phone vibrated in her palm. One night, the message read, "That's all you asked for." Elena typed back without hesitation. He chose. The pause. Then, and the wife. Elena's smile widened, slow and controlled. She's emotional. Emotional people make mistakes. She slipped the phone into her pocket and leaned against the railing, letting memory wash over her, not romance, not regret, but preparation. Years earlier, she had learned how empires fell. Not with explosions. Not with wars. But with trust. She returned inside just as Leonardo stirred awake. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked, his voice rough. Elena turned, soft now, vulnerable. "Perfectly timed. I didn't want to wake you." He reached for her. She let him, just enough. Desire was a currency, and she spent it carefully. "Your phone kept lighting up," she said gently. "I didn't answer it." Leonardo frowned, grabbed the phone, and froze. 10 missed calls. Something dark passed through his eyes. Not guilt. Not love. Fear. Elena noticed. "Is everything all right?" she asked, concern layered over curiosity. Leonardo exhaled. "She worries too much." But this time, the words sounded rehearsed, even to him. Elena sat beside him, her hand resting lightly on his knee. "You've given everything to everyone else," she whispered. "You're allowed to choose yourself once in a while." The knife was already in his hand. He just didn't know it. Across the city, Isabella stood in a parked car, watching the hotel from across the street. She didn't cry anymore. Her face was calm, her eyes sharp. The man beside her spoke quietly. "If she stays past dawn, the deal activates." Isabella nodded. "She wants him isolated. And weakened." Isabella's gaze never left the balcony. "No," she said. "She wants him blamed." Inside the hotel suite, Elena dressed slowly, deliberately. She chose red. Always red. The color of danger. The color of memory. Leonardo watched her with a mixture of desire and unease. Something about the night felt off. Too smooth. Too easy. "Elena," he said suddenly. She turned. "Yes." "How did you know my wife was calling?" "Just a fraction of a second. Not enough for anyone else to notice. But enough." She smiled. "I didn't. I guessed." Leonardo studied her face. The smile. The eyes. For the first time, he wondered how much of her he had never asked about. Elena crossed the room and kissed him lightly. "You trust me, don't you?" The question wasn't innocent. It was a test. Leonardo didn't answer right away. Somewhere deep inside him, instinct screamed. The same instinct that had kept him alive through ambushes and betrayals. The same instinct he had ignored 10 times already tonight. He nodded. Elena's phone vibrated. She didn't look at it. But Leonardo did. And that was the moment Isabella turned the key in the ignition. The city moved. Pieces shifted. Men who hadn't spoken in years picked up phones. Doors unlocked. Cars started. Elena kissed Leonardo again, longer this time. When she pulled away, her smile was softer than ever. And sharper. The screen fades to black. Empires don't fall in a single night. They fracture. Leonardo Moretti felt it before he saw it. The subtle shift in the air, the hesitation in voices that used to obey without question. The city still bowed to his name, but something beneath it had changed. Like a building that looked untouched, until you noticed the cracks running through the foundation. He stood in his private office, walls lined with maps and ledgers older than most of his enemies. 3 men waited in front of him. Loyal men. Trusted men. Too quiet. "Speak," Leonardo said. One of them cleared his throat. "The shipment from the docks was delayed." Leonardo's eyes narrowed. Delayed by who? The man hesitated. "Just a beat too long. Customs. Paperwork issues." Leonardo turned away, hiding his expression. Customs never touched his shipments without permission. Everyone in the city knew that. "Leave us," he said calmly. The men exited. The door closed. The silence that followed was heavy enough to suffocate. Leonardo picked up his phone. 10 missed calls. That was when it hit him, not like panic, but like recognition. The calls weren't emotional. They were timed. Across the city, Isabella watched the same shipments stall from a different screen. Names moved. Accounts froze. Meetings canceled without explanation. She wasn't attacking the empire. She was exposing its weak joints. The man beside her shook his head. "They're turning cautious. That means they're afraid." "Fear spreads faster than loyalty," Isabella replied. She hadn't slept. She hadn't eaten. She had crossed into a version of herself Leonardo had never needed to see. The wife was gone. What remained was someone who understood the machinery of power and how easily it jammed. Back at the hotel, Elena adjusted her coat as Leonardo paced. "You're imagining things," she said smoothly. "This happens every few years." Leonardo stopped. "No. This feels rehearsed." Elena tilted her head. "You've been under pressure. Pressure doesn't make men forget who they answer to." She stepped closer, resting her hand on his chest. "Then remind them." Leonardo stared down at her hand. For the first time, it felt unfamiliar. Later that night, a trusted lieutenant failed to return a call. Then another. Then a third. Leonardo slammed his fist against the desk. "Find them," he barked into the phone. Minutes later, the response came, quiet, shaken. "They're meeting without us." Leonardo closed his eyes. Meetings without him were unthinkable. Unless someone had convinced them he was already finished. Across town, Isabella sat in the back of a car as it rolled through streets she once felt safe in. She passed places where her husband's word used to be law. Tonight, the light stayed on longer. Doors stayed locked. "They're testing him," the man said. "No," Isabella replied. "They're testing the story they've been told about him." "What story is that?" She looked out the window. That he chose desire over instinct. Inside the hotel suite, Elena poured 2 drinks. "To clarity," she said. Leonardo didn't raise his glass. "You knew," he said suddenly. Elena froze, not in fear, but calculation. "Knew what?" "That tonight would matter." She smiled softly. "Every night matters." He stepped closer. "You wanted me isolated." "That's not fair." Leonardo laughed once, low, humorless. "Fair doesn't exist where I come from." For the first time, Elena didn't move closer. She stayed exactly where she was. That distance said everything. Outside, a car exploded 3 blocks away. Not loud enough to shake the building, but loud enough to be heard. Leonardo turned toward the window. "That wasn't meant for me," Elena said quickly. He looked back at her. "That's what scares me." Across the city, Isabella flinched at the sound, but didn't stop what she was doing. Phones rang. Orders shifted. The empire bent under the weight of uncertainty. She whispered to herself, "Answer the call, or answer for the silence." Leonardo finally picked up his phone. He stared at Isabella's name. His thumb hovered. Too late. The screen went dark. At the same moment, Elena's burner phone vibrated. She read the message. "Phase 2 is live." She deleted it without expression. Leonardo turned back to her, searching her face for something, truth, reassurance, a lie good enough to believe. He found none. The cracks had reached the surface. And once they did, collapse was no longer a question of if. Only who would survive it. The screen fades to black. The city held its breath. Not because it knew something terrible was coming, but because it felt the absence of something that used to hold it together. Leonardo Moretti stood alone in his office as dawn bled slowly into the skyline. No calls. No updates. No confirmations. Just silence, the kind that followed bad decisions, not peace. The 10 missed calls still glowed in his memory like a curse. He hadn't answered them. And now, no one was answering him. He loosened his collar, feeling the weight of 1,000 eyes that weren't there anymore. Men who once rushed to please him now hesitated. Men who once feared him now waited. Waiting was dangerous. He picked up his phone again. Isabella. He typed a message. Deleted it. Typed another. Deleted that, too. Power had taught him how to command armies, but not how to undo a moment. Across the city, Isabella Moretti stood on the rooftop of an unfinished building, wind tearing at her coat. Below her, cars moved like veins pumping through a body she knew was sick. Her eyes were dry. The tears had ended hours ago, right after the 10th call went unanswered. When she cried, she was a wife. When she stopped, she became something else. The man behind her spoke carefully. If you step back now, he might still survive this. Isabella didn't turn. He already chose. That doesn't mean he deserves to fall. She finally looked at him. Neither did I. She pulled out the phone. Not to call. To wait. Back in the hotel suite, Elena Vasari sat perfectly still on the edge of the bed, dressed, composed, untouchable. The room smelled faintly of perfume and regret. Her burner phone buzzed once. No message. Just a signal. She closed her eyes, not in relief but calculation. This was the moment everything balanced on. The moment where love, loyalty, and lies stopped pretending they were different things. Leonardo entered the room quietly. They looked at each other. No accusations. No apologies. Just two predators measuring distance. You're not afraid, Leonardo said. Elena smiled. Fear clouds judgment. You planned this. She didn't deny it. I anticipated it. He stepped closer. From the beginning? Elena's smile softened, dangerously. From the moment I realized you were lonely enough to listen. Leonardo felt it then. Not rage. Not heartbreak. Plus. Not of her. Of himself. Outside, sirens wailed somewhere far away. Not close enough to matter. Not yet. Across the city, Isabella's phone vibrated. A message. He's still alive. She closed her eyes briefly. That wasn't the question, she whispered. She typed a reply. So is the Empire? 3 dots appeared, then stopped. Elsewhere, a long-trusted lieutenant sat in a darkened car, staring at 2 phones, one with Leonardo's name, one with a new number. He didn't answer either. Silence had become the safest language. Leonardo poured a drink with shaking hands. He hadn't shaken in years. You knew about my wife, he said quietly. Elena crossed her legs. I knew she was smarter than you thought. Then why underestimate her? Elena's eyes narrowed for the first time. I didn't. That was the truth, and it chilled him more than any lie. Leonardo walked to the window. The city looked the same. That was the cruelest part. Empires never collapse all at once. They let you believe you still have time. His phone buzzed. 1 notification. Unknown number. You should have answered. Leonardo stared at the screen. Across the city, Isabella watched the same sunrise touch the skyline. She felt no victory. No satisfaction. Only resolve. She whispered, I warned you. Behind her, the man asked, What happens now? Isabella didn't answer immediately, because she didn't know. And that uncertainty, that unanswered question, was more powerful than any order she could give. Back in the suite, Elena stood, smoothing her coat. Where are you going? Leonardo asked. She paused at the door. Somewhere safer. He laughed bitterly. With them. Elena looked back at him, her expression unreadable. That depends on who's still standing. She opened the door. Stopped. And Leonardo? Yes. The tears weren't the beginning. Then she was gone. Leonardo stood alone as the door clicked shut. No gunshots. No screams. No blood. Just the echo of 10 missed calls, and a silence heavy enough to bury an empire. The screen fades to black.